What is happening to South Africa? A nation in slow collapse. South Africa, once hailed as a beacon of democracy and hope on the African continent, is facing a deepening crisis. High unemployment, persistent power outages, rising crime rates, and an undercurrent of fear have become part of everyday life. This is not the result of war or natural disaster. It's the story of a nation in gradual decline, faltering under the weight of unfulfilled promises and institutional failure. For many South Africans, daily survival is becoming increasingly difficult. The atmosphere is one of frustration, fatigue, and fading optimism. After years of living across Africa and traveling extensively, I find myself asking a difficult but necessary question. What is happening to South Africa? If the country does not confront its current trajectory, it risks becoming a shadow of its former self, defined not by the dreams of 1994, but by the dysfunction of the present, the cost of empty promises. To understand how we arrived here, we must revisit the promises that were made and broken. South Africa's democratic transition brought with it iconic leaders like Nelson Mandela, whose legacy still commands global respect. Yet even during the early years of democracy, warning signs began to emerge. Infrastructure, particularly in the energy sector, lagged behind the growing demands of the population. Despite repeated commitments to invest in electricity supply, few substantive actions were taken. The result has been years of power shortages that now shape the rhythm of everyday life. What followed were years of platitudes, ribbon cuttings, press briefings, and policy announcements, often accompanied by little meaningful change. Corruption flourished behind a facade of progress. Today, millions of South Africans live without reliable access to basic services like water, electricity, and safety. Hope, once the nation's guiding light, is now dimmed by years of disappointment. Load shedding. The new normal few symbols capture South Africa's decline as starkly as load shedding. Electricity blackouts are no longer anomalies. They are daily certainties. Whether in cities, suburbs, rural villages, or affluent neighborhoods, South Africans experience 2-hour power cuts multiple times a day. Life is scheduled around these outages. Weddings, surgeries, work meetings, and school exams are all at the mercy of the grid. It's happening in one of Africa's largest economies, a country that draws millions of tourists, immigrants, and investors. And yet, South Africa cannot keep the lights on for more than a few days at a time. Having lived here, I know the personal toll this takes. You charge your devices obsessively, carry flashlights, and constantly check load-shedding schedules. There's always the worry. What if the power fails in an elevator, during a medical procedure, or in the middle of a crucial online meeting? At the center of this energy crisis is Eskom, the state-run monopoly once considered a world-class utility. Today, it represents the rot of state capture and corruption. In 2019 alone, more than 170 billion rands, approximately $9 billion, were reported in irregular expenditures across state-owned entities, including Eskom. Yet little has changed. There is no competition, no accountability, just more announcements, more delays, and more darkness. A jobs crisis, like no other unemployment in South Africa, has reached devastating levels. In 2024, the country held the grim distinction of having the highest unemployment rate in Africa. Over 7 million South Africans are without work, a number that translates to 7 million daily struggles, 7 million households in distress, and 7 million stories of deferred dreams. Even those with degrees and qualifications are not spared. It is no longer unusual for graduates with honors to spend years searching for work, sending out applications that go unanswered. The crisis is not merely economic, it is deeply psychological. For many young people, the lack of opportunity has bred hopelessness and despair. This economic strain has also sparked growing tensions. Locals, already desperate for employment, are now competing with immigrants for scarce jobs. This is not a condemnation of those who've sought refuge or opportunity in South Africa. It is an indictment of a system that has failed to provide for its own citizens, let alone others. Trapped by power, in every sense. Load shedding is more than a technical issue. It is a metaphor for everything else going wrong. It symbolizes the failure of leadership, the erosion of trust, and the consequences of unchecked power. Eskom's monopoly, like many state-run enterprises, has become immune to reform. And until there is real accountability, the suffering will continue, not due to a lack of electricity, but due to a lack of political will. Still, there is resilience. South Africans are adapting, finding creative ways to survive, and continuing to call for change. But that resilience should not be mistaken for acceptance. The time for speeches is over. South Africa doesn't need more promises. It needs results. Because in a country with so much potential, no one should be left in the dark.